Nigeria, a remarkable country that burst into the 6th position in terms of population within a couple of years. And it seemed that what could go wrong? Here's the thing. A major African country wasn't ready for such a rapid growth, leading to a whole array of nightmarish problems. As always with you, Professor Google, and today you will learn why people are fleeing from Nigeria, and also see something you definitely...
And they'll show it on TV.
Is that already? If so, take a seat comfortably.
We are sending out...
See you in Nigeria.
A brief note. 62 years ago, Nigeria gained independence from Great Britain. We won't dissect the process itself, but this event fundamentally impacted the life of this state. So, for example, in Nigeria, there are 4 official languages: Chaos, Yoruba, and Igbo. But that's not all the oddities. As for religion, Nigerians equally follow Islam, Catholicism, and Protestantism. They often resort to traditional African beliefs. At the end of the 90s, there was a real baby boom in Nigeria, which shook the already complex situation of the country, which at the time was experiencing a profound economic and social crisis. At that time, the country had a population of around 90 million people. In 30 years, this number nearly tripled, to which Nigeria was clearly not ready. The population increases by 2.5% annually, threatening to surpass the United States by the year 2050. Problems. So what are the issues in Nigeria? Let's start perhaps with the most obvious. The country is incredibly dirty. Like in any underdeveloped state, very little attention is paid to garbage. And if the streets of the capital look more or less decent, the slums, where the lower classes live, are just like one big dumpster. Against this backdrop, power outages are not so typical, as residents have long stocked up on autonomous generators. And the drinking water situation in Nigeria is a real nightmare. It's simply not enough for the entire urban population, because the country is in an extremely unfavorable position. Supply disruptions occur regularly, but that's not the most surprising thing. Even now, in large cities, there is no water supply and central sewage. Talking about rural areas, people still follow their ancestors' traditions. Talking about the level of medical services is almost unnecessary. The healthcare system in the country is very underdeveloped. Here, of course, there are special educational institutions that prepare medical personnel, but there are very few staff. You can only get decent medical care at private paid clinics, inaccessible to the majority of Nigeria's population. And even there, the level of healthcare is significantly lower than in the poorest country of the old world. This leads to the next issue, because in the country there are almost no elderly people, as the vast majority die at a relatively young age. The reason is the human immunodeficiency virus. According to data from 2021, in Nigeria, over 3% of the population is infected with this disease. This African country ranks among the top in the world by this measure. After all, there, you can even encounter infected individuals.
Children.
In conditions of weak medicine and poor sanitation, malaria and hepatitis roam free. The ministry, abdominal guide, typhoid, intestinal infections, and so on. Only 5% of the population lives up to 60 years, indicating a catastrophic situation in Nigeria. So, what's up with work? In a word, it's simply youth unemployment rate has reached 54%. Most families, to somehow survive, train their children for hard labor from an early age. Women are primarily employed in trade, as well as on plantations harvesting peanuts, cocoa, and fruits. Some people work in clothing manufacturing or serve tourists. Men, if lucky, get jobs in mining or oil industries or go to fish processing plants. And those less fortunate either trade, earning pennies for their goods, or beg from wealthy tourists. Meanwhile, they engage in robberies. Such a situation led to widespread poverty among Nigerians. Just look at this amazing shot. A boy floats through the slums of Makoko in Lagos, dubbed the African Venice. Thousands of city dwellers live here, making ends meet. This happens even though Nigeria is rich in oil, gold, and other minerals. Such resources do not impact the citizens' welfare, as 70% live below the poverty line. So-called middle class is just two whole numbers. 0.9% of the total population. And there are even fewer wealthy individuals among Nigerians. Education in the country is paid, which also affects the overall state of Nigeria. The country, of course, has schools, universities, libraries, and even its own Academy of Sciences. But still, education is far from accessible to everyone. Almost a third of Nigerians are illiterate. The only option to make a way in life is to move to Europe, which is actively utilized by those who have enough funds for a one-way ticket. What else could be troubling the people of Nigeria? Well, for example, armed conflicts. In some areas of the country, the terrorist group Boko Haram operates. In 2015, its members destroyed 16 villages and towns in the northern Stalin region. At any moment, a Nigerian citizen may become homeless, which isn't the most optimistic outlook, you'd agree. At the same time, the country suffers from frequent floods, which have become a common occurrence due to climate change. When the water level is stable, droughts leading to shortages are common.
About food and supplies, enough
To pass the time, people constantly play soccer. And no, it's not their favorite pastime. They simply have nothing else to occupy themselves with. Leisure systems in Nigeria are poorly developed. Speaking of large cities,
Cinema.
where mostly low-budget local movies are shown.
New production.
In clubs, the youth often go with the aim of finding a one-night stand. And decent cafes are only accessible to those with above-average wealth. But having a big wallet promises you nothing good. Walking the streets of local cities is quite dangerous. In this country, there is a very high crime rate. If you have
Better not spend the money.
providing this experience to those around. On the streets, both tourists and locals can easily be robbed. It's generally advised against for a woman to walk alone in the city, even on a bright sunny day. To speak of it, kidnapping for ransom has become a normalized practice. After receiving the required amount, the person is returned to their relatives. However, there are exceptions to every rule. Lastly, here are 4 facts that make living in Nigeria simply unbearable. First, heat. In large cities, the air is barely breathable, especially during the dry season, which lasts almost half a year in the country. Throughout the year, temperatures often reach 38 to 39 degrees Celsius in the shade. When a dry, dusty wind blows from the Sahara, it becomes particularly unbearable. Second, traffic jams. The country has very bad roads. In large cities like Lagos, being stuck in traffic for hours is a common occurrence. There is no road safety system in place, and traffic lights are almost non-existent. Drivers exist.
Grandpa
It
cabs.
seems easy, but getting a license is not that difficult. Every year, between 8 and 10,000 people die in traffic accidents.
Third,
Dirty air. Nigeria is an industrial country that exports coal, chemical goods, and rubber, in addition to oil. So there are quite a few nuisances in its territory.
Enterprises.
Overall, the ecology here leaves...
striving for the best. Yikes.
The situation in local cities is exacerbated by vehicular traffic. And the fourth, nowhere to swim. And yes, it's one of Nigeria's most pressing issues. Despite the fact that part of the country is bordered by the Gulf of Guinea, there are hardly any centralized places for swimming. The available beaches are littered and not equipped. The majority of the population uses coastal areas as a public restroom. Some Nigerians, however, take the risk and get into the dirty water, or bathe their children in makeshift frog ponds.
And that's a fraud.
My friends, not all of Nigeria's problems. The country has sunk into chaos, where the authorities have taken a very advantageous position of observer. We hope this video has given you an understanding of what this African country is all about. As always, it's Professor Google here with you, wishing everyone a great mood. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel and like this video. See you soon.